What's up, guys? It's your boy, the essential John L. Crossfire, aka the real main event, aka the Rogue Soldier, and today you're about to learn firsthand just what it's like to be caught in the crossfire. But above all else, prepare yourself, because in this very moment, today, right now, you are about to be caught in conversation. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 46 of Caught in Conversation. As always, I am the essential John L. Crossfire, and we have all the ranting, reviewing, and marking out today. But today I'm not alone. I am here for now the fourth time, I think. One-time guest, now three-time co-host, live via satellite. You have all been blessed by the best. It's James Hellfire.
Hello, everyone. Good to see talk again and
good
be
to see
here.
you on this audio podcast.
Exactly right.
We've been chatting for a little bit now before I hit record. I figured we better knock it out before we get too sidetracked. I'd ask you how you're doing, but, that's kind of redundant at this point. First and foremost, I'll get into the song of the week before we get too far into it. It's pretty good off the back, actually, of last week's mental health episode, which we've got some good feedback from that so far. I'm still kind of reeling from how vulnerable we let ourselves feel, but as we said, if we can help at least, one person, we'll be happy with that. But the song this week, I feel it's super appropriate. Super appropriate. What even is English? It's Screaming in Silence by Citizen Soldier. It's one of their newest tracks. They've just dropped yet another one yesterday, but haven't had a chance to listen to it just yet. Look out for that for a future episode. But the song of the week this week is Screaming in Silence by Citizen Soldier. Remember, it is okay to not be okay. Have you listened to the new one, have you?
Yes, it is beautiful. It is actually a great song. People should go check it out right now.
Fuck yes. But let's get into the wrestling. I'll do the match of the week later on, because it's going to slip in nicely before we transition into the Supercard stuff. But James, Thomas, DJ Maxibon, Boo, whatever the fuck your name is, WrestleMania 38. It's come and gone, and I said this to Teak, and I think I said this to you, and I feel like you agreed, but it honestly may have been the best Mania in the last 9 to 10 years.
Easily.
It had a great blend of the modern stars mixed with the nostalgia. And I have got a couple of talking points that I have written down. But on the surface, before we go into too much detail, overall feelings on WrestleMania 38. Good, bad, indifferent. Good, bad, or indifferent?
The weird thing is, and you know how I've stood on WWE for a long time. It's been a very up and down relationship with me and WWE. You know that. But I think this WrestleMania I can't say anything bad, to be honest. Honestly, all round, I felt that everyone put in a good effort and did extremely well.
I still want them, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, I still want them to cut back to just one night, but
yes,
obviously, they've only done the 2-night thing. This was the third night, and the third year in a row now that they've done the 2-night thing. Easily the best version of the 2-night thing. As I said, I think it's the best WrestleMania in 10 years, but continue.
Obviously the Cody Rhodes return was awesome for me. I've been a mark for Cody for a long time. And, when I met him, I nearly screamed. But that's a personal note, and we'll leave that.
That's actually the first talking point, because I was going to kind of go matter of importance, but I've kind of tried to write them down kind of in chronological order. So the first point that I did put down was Cody Rhodes, because I knew that you'd have something to say about this. Now, obviously, as we just said, he's returned to WWE. Side note, before I get into the talking point, whenever Mrs. Crossfire gets a chance to listen to this, I'm going to apologize again, because I fucked up. I accidentally asked, and I told you this and you lost your shit. She hadn't seen any spoilers. And I'm like, oh, so you haven't seen who Cody's opponent was, instead of saying Seth's opponent. Insert R-Truth here. My bad.
That's all me, y'all.
But back to the task at hand, though. With Cody returning, he's made it clear he wants a shot at the belt title, as Miz said. That whole segment was fucking great.
It really
honestly, what do you think the next 6 to 12 months looks like for Cody? Do you actually think he will win the world title? I've got a little bit of notes here, but I'll let you go first. Do you think he will win the world title? Do you who do you think he'll feud with? Is there anyone you want him to feud with? Just tell me what you want / think will happen with Cody Rhodes in the next 6 months to 12 months, because I know you're just a massive Cody mark.
Yeah, well, I think WWE has done a way better job than AEW did at presenting him as a megastar already. To be honest, you know, the fans in AEW just, I don't know what was going on there. I don't want to sound like I'm just talking trash about AEW, but I don't know what was going on there to the point that he was getting booed. But if you do something right with him and, you know, do what WWE is doing and build him up like he's this megastar, it's obviously working. For now.
I feel like Cody booked himself into a corner there in a sense, because
he did.
We all know that he's in charge, right? And I feel like that's why the Bucks and Kenny, they're not going like super heel authority figures per se, but I feel like that's why their heel turns were they work so well, because it's like, okay, look, you've been a babyface, but now you're the champion. We know you're in charge. That's kind of like AEW, they're full of smart marks. At the end of the day, they know how it works. So I feel like they turned heel and they kind of dodged a bullet, per se, if that makes sense. Whereas Cody's like, no, I want to be a babyface, but I want to do this. And they're like, we know what this is. We're going to play along during the shows to an extent, but, you know, and I don't think that's a slight on Cody, because, and you and I talked about this off air, and this is why I wanted to bring it up, because, and I talked about it with Atticus Slane as well off air, that Cody Rhodes, he's trying to emulate Dusty, which is great, right? Yeah. You know, it's his dad, it's his hero. But you look at when Dusty was booking compared to when Cody was booking. Cody is very much still in his prime. Dusty had been there, done that. He could still go like a motherfucker. I mean, he was still going, you know, in some of the earlier, you know, some of the later days of his life, rather. He wasn't putting on 5-star classics, but either you know, even in 2007, 2008, right, when he was feuding with Randy Orton, they weren't 5-star classics, but the psychology and stuff, he could still go. Whereas Cody, he's very much in that, you know, get my shit in, brother, go kind of thing. He just did flaming tables and shit with Andrade. You know,
exactly.
He wants to do stuff. He wants to get in the ring. He wants to do shit. Some of it's stupid shit, but that's okay. It's entertaining. And I feel like he kind of painted himself into a corner with, you know, the whole not being able to win the title thing, because it's wrestling. Kayfabe-wise, they could have done something to change that, but I think he realizes that as the EVP, if he does that, the fans are like, oh, you're booking yourself on top, especially after he's done the whole, you know, Triple H-esque throne smash and stuff as well, right?
He makes him look stupid.
It basically makes him look like a hypocrite, essentially.
Exactly.
But to
get back to your question,
to answer the actual question, sorry, my bad.
Yeah. I think with Money in the Bank being a stadium show, right? So WWE is doing 3 stadium shows this year, which is kind of crazy.
Back to back, really.
Yeah. And in the UK, which is cool for the UK
it
fans.
Just announced this morning or yesterday, whenever it was.
Yesterday morning, yeah.
Anyway.
Super, super cool. And I think with Money in the Bank being in a stadium show, I think Cody could possibly win the Money in the Bank match. Mm-hmm. And perhaps maybe go to SummerSlam and beat Roman. Cash in. So, I honestly think that they're building him to be the guy that dethrones Roman.
It's interesting that you mentioned Money in the Bank, because my idea also involved Money in the Bank, but it wasn't Cody winning. But continue your thoughts before I get into mine.
I honestly think that people are talking about The Rock versus Roman, but that doesn't need the title, right?
I said that to Teak, right? I said, what if, you know, The Rock was to come back at, say, Survivor Series this year, and possibly
he could even be the reason,
title, right? Cost Roman
he
the
could
title.
Possibly do that at some.
And he's like, cost Roman the title and be like, I don't need that. I've been there, done that. I've won championships. Roman Reigns, you want to call yourself the head of the table, and I basically said, you know, Yokozuna handed down that to Rikishi. Rikishi handed that down to The Rock. The Rock never handed that down to you, Roman. You know, basically the same song and dance that The Rock's does. But I feel like that could work tenfold.
Yeah. I was just thinking more SummerSlam because, The Rock shows up at SummerSlam.
Imagine even if it happened like somehow they managed to fly the Rock into the UK on a private jet. You've got a sold out UK fan base. They're losing their mind, and The Rock's music hits. Like,
that'd be a good way to say, we're back in WWE. WWE's back in London, wherever it's going to be. I think it's in London.
It's in Wales, actually. This one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's still a UK crowd. They're always fucking nuts. Like, imagine, just imagine. Like, that's not what I thought was happening, but that was like a little fantasy booking thing that I said to take. But you do think that Cody will at least at some point be champion then?
Yes. Within the next year, at least the next 12 months, I think he will be.
You see, I honestly wouldn't be surprised, and this is probably still more fantasy booking as well, but my thoughts on what were going to happen was, to start off with, I'd have Drew McIntyre win Money in the Bank. Cody defeats Roman Reigns at SummerSlam. Unfortunately, Cody is a transitional champion because Drew McIntyre cashes in during the rematch in the UK, wins the championship in front of the UK fans, which, obviously he's Scottish, but, it's still the UK, so it's kind of like his people to a sense, right? And then at Survivor Series, you got a triple threat between Cody, Reigns, McIntyre, where Reigns just wins the title back, and then Drew goes on a heel run, wins the title back after Mania, and has a proper run as a heel with the title in front of the fans. Could be completely off on that, but I just feel like that, because Drew's been teasing a heel run for a while now, and then
I feel like they're kind of doing, how Roman kind of, he sort of, when he was at the end of his face run, he kind of was doing stuff with Corbin.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Like, he was like teasing a heel run, but then he went super babyface against Corbin. So I'm like, I don't know. Like, is that kind of the same thing?
Yeah.
But regardless, I feel like, because at the end of the day, I feel like even if it's a transitional champion, I'm the same as you. I do see Cody winning the championship before the end of 2022, because Roman Reigns, he's already the longest reigning Universal Champion. He doesn't have to hold it for the whole year. He just, in theory, as we say, Rock versus Roman, if it happens, doesn't need the championship necessarily. The Rock's a megastar. Roman Reigns is becoming a megastar. But I feel like it will be for the title, just for the novelty. But he just needs to end the year as champion, if that's the case, or even wins it back at the Royal Rumble sort of thing. Like, but I think Cody, final thoughts, as I said, I'm rambling all over the place, but I do think that Cody will be champion. The next talking,
I definitely think he will be. I definitely think he will be.
I feel like he almost has to, right? Even if he holds it for one night, like his whole thing was, I'm back to be world champion. Well, surely, the big fuss that they've made of bringing him back in, surely that's got to be a thing. But, it's wrestling. You never know. The next talking point, and this is something that we were actually wrong about, and I've never been more glad to be wrong about something in my life. Stone Cold Steve Austin competed in an actual fucking match in the main event on night one at WrestleMania. Holy fucking shit. Now,
dude, I think I got into a lot of trouble for screaming so much.
Now they still stuck to the same formula that we did discuss in that podcast episode where, they brawled around ringside into the crowd, but it was still technically a sanctioned match. It went for a bit longer than we thought. Stone Cold only took one actual proper bump in that match, though, which was a suplex on the floor. So kudos to him for taking that bump, but work smarter, not harder.
Less is more, ladies and gentlemen.
What a moment, though. The main thing for me that I took away from this, though, is what a moment for Kevin Owens. Like, you and I talked about this off air. It's been just a little over a week. By the time this episode drops, we'll be just on 2 weeks. So we've had a little bit of time to kind of digest this. But Stone Cold Steve Austin wrestled a match in 2022, which is nuts. But there was only 2 pin attempts in that whole match. But it was a match nonetheless. And Kevin Owens, with all due respect to Steve Austin, he really carried this. You know, obviously Steve still got it, you know, from a psychology standpoint, but KO, he carried the hell out of this whole feud and this match. He really made Steve Austin still look like stone cold Steve Austin. Like, just think of all of those people at the start of the year that were condemning him when he re-signed with WWE instead of going to AEW. And in a slightly smaller scale, Sami Zayn just did the same thing in that amazing fucking comedy match that they had with Johnny Knoxville. That's probably one of the most entertaining
matches. That's probably one of the most entertaining matches I've ever watched at WrestleMania in my life. Not like match quality was, but just for the laugh and the entertainment.
That's where the entertainment comes into sports entertainment. I thought it was fucking great.
I thought it was great too.
Do you think that this is the last hurrah for Steve Austin? Because, like, it's a storybook ending in a sense. He had his first match in Dallas, so he has his last match in Dallas. But I kind of, you could see just obviously he's done appearances here and there for fucking years and years and years. But you could see on his face just how different it was for him actually being back in there, you know, truly as Stone Cold Steve Austin. So I think
he's got one more in him.
In my mind, I look at it as, and I said this to you, I can honestly see him facing Brock Lesnar. Obviously, it's not going to be too many suplex cities because, you know, he's got the damaged neck, but I can easily see him having kind of like a 5 to 6 minute match with Brock Lesnar at either SummerSlam or a Saudi show, or hell, even the UK pay-per-view, where it's just kind of stunner, throw a couple of F5s in there, they make money, he takes the loss and makes up for all those years ago where he walked out and then he heads back to the Broken Skull Ranch. And personally, as a fan, I selfishly just want to see that because I feel like SummerSlam is perfect because it's actually 20 years since the very first title win for Brock Lesnar, where it was Rock versus Brock at SummerSlam 2022. Oh, sorry, 2002. We're in 2022. What are your thoughts? Do you think he has one more in him? And if so, who do you think it will be against / where?
From what I saw, I personally think that he's definitely got more in the tank. But whether or not he does it is just a completely different question. I think he seems content with what he's done, which is weird because he only retired when he was 38, which is young for, you know, for wrestlers nowadays retiring.
It makes sense, though, when you figure in, you know, his neck injuries and spinal stenosis and stuff like that. But I see what you mean. Like, and he's been out of it for that long that, you know, his body, you can tell his body's doing a lot better than it was back in the day. Like, he's probably in a better shape now than he was when he was riding high, as, you know, the Texas Rattlesnake, Stone Cold Steve Austin dropping stunners on Vince every fucking, you know, left, right, and center.
Are we going to talk about that Vince stunner?
We will get there. That's actually my next talking point. So, do you have a certain opponent in mind? I'm not even going to edit that out. Whatever. Do you have a certain opponent in mind for Stone Cold if he's to have one more? And where do you think it'll happen? If it happens.
I honestly would enjoy him versus Rollins just for the promo battles. And just for the, you know, Rollins' new gimmick, he's probably one.
And I didn't think of that, but I could see that working.
Exactly. Rollins is he's great to work with. And people blame him for that Sting thing, but look, that was just a freak accident in my opinion. And it happens. He's a good worker and he's got a good gimmick now. I'm a really big fan of Rollins.
I would very much be into those promos. Holy shit. But my next talking point, they bring up, over on night 2, first and foremost, before we get to any of that, Pat McAfee and Austin Theory had a fucking banger, just like I said they would from the get-go. But we bring this up because we had 3 Stone Cold Stunners take place after this. Theory with almost the Rock-like sell, and it was pretty great in its own right. Pat McAfee had what, in my opinion, I put this out there on social media, is in the top 3 all-time stunner sells. It was fucking beautiful.
Can we just remember Pat on the neck dead next to the announce table, just laying there,
and he's still drinking the beer while he's on the ground. That is one of the greatest photos.
That's a move. That's a move. You know how many times I wanted to do that in the middle of a match?
I want to know, though, Vince's sell job on this. Do you think it was intentional or he's just genuinely that sloppy? Because Vince has never taken a good stunner, and I honestly felt like when I was watching it, it was almost like he did it as a rib to Steve Austin, because you could tell that he was laughing his ass off, and I'm like, it's WrestleMania, right? So if you famously take bad stunners, why not take the worst one of all time at WrestleMania?
Yeah.
So what do you think?
I don't know about that. I generally think Stone Cold got him with a decent kick in the gut and Vince went flying. Because if you look at that kick, it was a pretty decent kick to an old man in 75. He kicked the shit out of him.
He laid it in there right to the breadbasket, as Jim Ross would say.
And Vince it was like him, it was like someone tripping over and walking through water or something.
And that's, I've seen people say that online as well. It's like, did Vince just kind of, miss his cue, so he was caught off guard by the kick? Like, that could have just been it, but I'm like, the sell job, even when he took the actual stunner, the way that he just kind of crumpled, I was like, even for Vince, I know he's old, but that was bad. We just saw him they were sloppy clotheslines, but we saw him moving around the ring with Pat. So we've seen that he can still move to some extent, and then you go from that to just, he's still an old man and he folded on the stunner. I was like, okay.
It was cool to see, though. I think this WrestleMania, nostalgia-wise, really nailed it on the head.
And that's what I mean. They mixed the mix of nostalgia, and everyone says WWE can't build stars. You look at from the Royal Rumble where everyone was like, "Ooh, we want surprises." Well, do you want new stars or do you want nostalgia pops? Take your fucking pick. Anyway, I digress.
They are building new stars.
I digress. Look, Drew McIntyre kicked out at the end of the days. I'm still pissed off about it because I called that 6 months ago before the feud had even really kicked off. That's fine. Whatever. That's just my personal opinion. They have built...
I can confirm, ladies and gentlemen, he did.
Yeah, fucking... Whatever. I'm still a Drew McIntyre fan. It was just so a fucking obvious, to me at least, that no one had ever kicked out of it. Everyone's like, oh, Drew's in this throwaway match with Corbin. And I'm like, yeah, you know what Corbin has? A finisher that's never been kicked out of. And everyone's like, nah, that's not going to happen. Well, it fucking did.
Even Kurt Angle didn't kick out of that. Come on.
He retired Kurt Angle with that move. He has pinned Roman Reigns with that move. Anyway.
And if you can't beat God mode, brother.
But, overall, though, as we say, they've done a perfect job for this Mania. I do want them to go back to just one night eventually. They have already confirmed that next year will be 2 nights again, but...
God, I'm going to be tired.
It is what it is. I just fast forward for the ads, try and avoid spoilers, whatever. But... overall, what do you think was the best match of WrestleMania weekend, and what was your favorite?
Favorite was definitely Stone Cold versus KO. And for me, match of the weekend was probably Seth versus Cody. For me, it's a match that I've always personally wanted to see them two go one-on-one at WrestleMania or SummerSlam. And it happened, and Cody came out. I didn't expect him to come out to Kingdom in a million years.
I said on that a WWE show when it was rumored. I said, if he comes out, it has to be to that song.
He almost has to be the same as he was presented in AEW. Otherwise, it just wouldn't work.
I said this to Teak. I'm like, look, he had it in Ring of Honor. He had it in Impact. He's been using it. But I'm like, it essentially has become an AEW theme song in effect. So I'm like, the fact that was blasting through the arena, especially off the back of the Women's Rumble, where Mickie James comes out to hardcore country. I just need Chris Jericho to come out to Judas, and I'm set. I'm like...
Yeah.
It was just a massive pop. But I said this to you, and I said it to Teak as well, and I truly think, from bell to bell, the best match in terms of quality for me was Becky Lynch versus Bianca Belair. I loved Cody versus Seth, and maybe this is me being too much of a, quote-unquote smart mark, but the finish left a lot to be desired for me. I'm like, 4 crossroads in the match all up, I felt like it was overkill.
It kind of puts a damper on the crossroads if you've got to do it in your first match back 4 times, you know what I mean?
I feel like, and even if you just had have done the bionic elbow first, and then did like the 3 in a row, it would have been cool. But the fact that it was like 1, 2, which made 3 because he'd already kicked out of 1 earlier, then the bionic elbow, then the 4th one, it just kind of looked odd to me. And like, I know, look, one thing we hate being called in wrestling is wrestling's fake. It just looked look, I like flippy shit when it's done right, but it's like, this was way too choreographed. It's like, you drop the guy, pick him up, elbow him, pick him up, drop him again. Like, it's that's just me. Maybe that's my own fault. Maybe the internet's ruined me, but I feel like the match was so good, and then the finish just kind of felt awkward, and I feel like that's why I have to give the edge to Bianca.
That's kind of like the Brock and Roman match, though. I didn't know what happened there. At the end, it kind of looked like Roman hurt himself.
Well, that's what everyone said, but apparently that was just to work. That's how it was meant to end, and that's why I didn't put a talking point for that, because at the end of the day, people were going to complain regardless of the outcome of that, because their matches always have the same formula. Big move, big move, big move. And it makes sense for them because they are big guys and they've been built up to be these monsters that, hey, it takes more than one finisher to put them down. That's fine. As much as I don't like it, I'll look past it because from a kayfabe sense, this is how they've been built. But it left a lot to be desired.
It did. And building it up to be the biggest WrestleMania match ever, I feel it was already doomed from the start.
Well, see,
you can't build it up to be like that.
This is where I'm in two minds, right? Because from a kayfabe aspect, we've unified titles before. We've never done it in the main event of WrestleMania. So from a kayfabe aspect, from an accolade standpoint, it's the biggest match. But then you've also got to kind of, it's like when Edge and Orton had the greatest wrestling match of all time, which actually ended up being a pretty good match. It was like the opposite of Rock versus Hogan. Had there have been fans, it probably would go down as a classic, but that's a completely different topic. I just feel like you built it up from a kayfabe aspect. It does make sense to have that moniker, but you need to do something in that match, right? Like, and again, like, even if you had, and maybe this is beating a dead horse, right? But The Rock, he doesn't even have to be there. You and I said this. Have The Rock come up on the screen and cost Roman the match. Or
yeah, exactly.
Have The Rock, come out and not even challenge Roman. Like, have The Rock actually come out and, like, raise Roman's hand or something like they did at the Rumble, right? But except that, at least this time, Roman's actually a heel, so when they're booing, The Rock's not going to be confused. I just really want The Rock, and maybe that's my fault, but I just...
Speaking of The Rock, I don't know if you or anyone that listens to this podcast has been keeping up with Young Rock.
I haven't been keeping up with it. I didn't realize that Binge already had the first 5 episodes, but I did see the screen cap from yesterday's episode where
he's running around.
Where it's like young Joe in the show says, "Hey Dwayne, let's wrestle," and he's like, "The world's not ready for that. A match that big has to happen at WrestleMania." And I'm like, did that motherfucker just use his show to plant the seeds? Because if so, I'm sorry, that's fucking brilliant. Absolutely
and he waited until after this year's WrestleMania to do it?
Brilliant.
Imagine if he did it before WrestleMania. Like, that would have had everyone talking. It would have pissed everyone off at the end of the main event when he didn't show up.
They've promoted Young Rock multiple times on Raw and SmackDown, so I feel like would not be surprised one bit if this is some sort of cross-promotion. Like, look at, we're just talking about Pat McAfee just before, and I'll quickly run through this before I go through my favorite match so we can move on, but we're talking about Pat McAfee versus Austin Theory just before. That angle with Pat McAfee and Adam Cole that started on Pat McAfee's platform. Brilliant stuff. But, yeah, as I said, best match of the weekend for me, I feel just by an edge, was Becky versus Bianca. My favorite match, I'm in two minds here because obviously, the nostalgia of Steve Austin opening up a can of whoop ass, and he's in there with one of my favorites in Kevin Owens on top of that, had me marking out like an absolute sumbitch. But then from a character and story development, I've got to go to Edge versus AJ Styles. Now, you and I talked about this. It wasn't the match that you and I expected it to be, but I actually liked it more because of this, because you've got this new version of Edge, and with the finish, you've just paired him with Damian Priest, and I fucking love the idea of that pairing. I'm a big fan of Priest as well. It's a good rub for him, and it also opens up for a full-blown feud going forward in theory at least, between Edge and AJ Styles, with Damian Priest possibly having an Edge and Damian Priest versus AJ Styles and Finn Balor match at some point in the near future. But it excites me because Edge versus Seth Rollins last year, they had a great feud, and in my opinion, their Hell in a Cell match was the match of the year in 2021, regardless of promotion, New Japan, AEW, Ring of Honor. I don't fucking care. For me, that was the best wrestling match of 2021, and I feel like this opens up the potential for a feud, and then possibly leading into Edge and Styles, maybe even having match of 2022. That's just me.
Can we just talk about Edge's amazing fucking entrance at WrestleMania?
Oh, bro. Everyone lost their mind when they took away Metalingus, but I'm like, that's the point.
I like this better.
It's a heel. It fits so well, and it's still Alter Bridge. It's a fucking banger of a song.
I'm going to get hate for this, but I dig it. I literally dig the other side more.
Yeah, as an actual song, I like the other side more. But and I said this to Teak, and I think I said this to you when we were just talking. We talk so much shit. We're talking shit about wrestling for an hour before we even started recording, which I probably should have just fucking hit record and chopped it up. But the day that the whole "you think you know me" hits, that fucking pop is going to be massive.
Exactly.
Going to be massive. Do you have anything else you want to add about WrestleMania before we move on?
Pretty much just what you said. It should go back to one day because I'm sick of being tired and watching all these wrestling events on WrestleMania weekend. But let's continue, bro.
I have no problem with it. All the big pay-per-views now, like SummerSlam and Survivor Series, have been moved to 4 hours. That's fine because they've usually only got half an hour pre-shows now. But I feel like WrestleMania, you can have an hour-long pre-show with 2 matches on it plus a 4-hour card. You can bump it to 5 hours possibly because it is WrestleMania, but stick to the 1 hour pre-show and just have one flat card. And people are like, oh, but this person doesn't make the card and that person doesn't make the card. Well, that's where all the guys and girls, all the wrestlers, superstars, workers, whatever you want to fucking call them, whatever company, that's where they bust their ass and they own that spot. And then, people are probably still going to complain because, oh, well, this guy took that person's spot, yada, yada, yada. It's fucking wrestling. At the end of the day, everyone's still going to do something and they're still going to pay accordingly. They're still going to get paid accordingly. That's my mind, at least. But I just...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly
Moving on,
right.
though, before we get to Supercard of Honor, my match of the week this week is... I don't think I even told you what the match of the week was, so you're finding out at the same time everyone else is. My bad. The match of the week this week is the Age of the Fall. That's Jimmy Jacobs and Tyler Black, who, funnily enough, looks a lot like Cody's WrestleMania opponent in Seth Rollins, versus the Briscoes in a, quote, relaxed rules match, essentially no DQ, at Supercard of Honor 3 back in 2008. I watched it last night. I watched it again this morning just to make sure it was good enough to be the match of the week. It's an absolute car crash of a match. It reminded me of the original ECW in all the right ways. The sound is muted at the start during the entrances because of copyright, so if you're watching it, don't freak out. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just whatever it is. Even on Honor Club, they've still got it muted out, which is weird, but whatever. Again, that match is Jimmy Jacobs and Tyler Black versus the Briscoes at Supercard of Honor 3. Have you seen that match, Tom?
No, I have not, but I will definitely check it out tonight, as I not long ago got Honor Club.
I was about to say that. Now that you have Honor Club, go watch it. It's fucking great. The Briscoes doing shit there that they're still doing in 2022. It really... fucking, especially, obviously we're going to get into it, but the FTR Briscoes match was amazing. So seeing that and then seeing that and then going back and seeing them do it 20 fucking years ago, well, not 20 years ago in the case of this match because it was 2008, but you know what I mean? They've been around since, I think the early days of Ring of Honor in 2002, which was 20 years ago. So I'm just like, fuck yes, I was totally here for it. But we'll move on. Definitely go check that match out, James. But now for our recap-ish of Supercard of Honor. We established off-air that you didn't get a chance to write notes just because of life, but I'll go through my notes and you can just kind of jump in when something sparks your interest. But on the pre-show, which usually I'm not big on having match after match after match when it's meant to be the pre-show and you're trying to win into it, but I feel like they've been on hiatus. It's Supercard of Honor anyway. I enjoyed it, but match number 1, Blake Christian versus Colt Cabana. I marked out like a sumbitch when they showed the match graphic to this because I didn't know it was happening until I was fucking watching it. But being a mark aside, this match really kicked it off with a bang. You have a huge name in Ring of Honor history with Colt Cabana, and then you have the new school with Blake Christian, who's absolutely killing it right now in his own right. So I just loved the dynamic from the get-go there. This match alone, just from the clash of characters and each of their respective journeys, really kind of personified what I'd call, the glory days of Ring of Honor. So before the match even started, I was just like, fuck, Ring of Honor actually is back. And as simple as this match was, I feel like, and I don't know how you feel about this because you're a mark for Blake Christian as well, I feel like as simple as this match was, I feel like it was actually one of the better matches that Blake Christian has had. He looked like $1 million, and eventually Colt Cabana goes on to pick up the win with the Chicago Skyline. I was a little bit sad he didn't do the Superman, but again, that's just me. I'm a mark. Typical Ring of Honor, show of respect after the match, which has always, been the theme with the Code of Honor. Most people that listen to this podcast and are Ring of Honor fans are well and truly aware of that. Match 2 on the pre-show time, we had Miranda Alizé versus AQA. Now, I'm a very big fan of Miranda Alizé. I don't know about you, though. I've not really been super familiar with AQA. I've seen her name pop up a few times. I know she's been on AEW Dark, but I haven't actually watched any of her stuff, so I don't know really anything about her.
I haven't seen both of them, so I literally, like, people are going to put crap on me, but I literally don't know who either of them are. I've got no idea. I didn't watch the
They're both very green. Miranda Alizé, she's starting to make a name for herself because she was in the women's title tournament. She's trained with Tessa Blanchard and Daga, who, a lot of controversy there, but they are very talented. So she's in good hands. I just hope that she doesn't adopt their
develop the ego.
Alleged attitude. I will say alleged because you never know who might actually randomly fucking listen to this.
Yeah.
But she's super talented, and AQA, from what I saw here, seems talented, but definitely the more green of the two, as was reflected with her neon green gear. But no, I guess. But I am a really big fan of Miranda Alizé, and I can easily see her on a bigger stage in a few years' time. It was pretty standard stuff here. Alizé was really, getting the character work over with the heel. She did a forearm in the corner in the early going. It was just a flying forearm, but she kind of did like, how Becky Lynch does like the flying like firearm, she calls it, off the apron, where it's just like almost like a Superman punch almost, but she goes like fucking forward. She did that. It was like a stinger splash mixed with like the forearm, but the way she just launched it was just fucking sick. I've never popped at something so basic in my life, but the way she did it, I was just like, where the fuck did that come from? Like, I hope she keeps doing that. Maybe she can even develop it into like a signature later on down the line. But yeah, AQA goes on to pick up the win with a shooting star press that was actually pretty amazing. Like, we all joke about, all the guys doing flips and tricks and, whatever, but really impressive shooting star press. So if anything else, I don't know anything about it, but I took that away. One of the best shooting star presses I've seen in a while. Match number 3 though, and this was, I don't want to say anticlimactic because it did its job, but we had the Shinobi Shadow Squad, which is Cheeseburger, who's actually going by Cheeseburger again now. He's no longer world famous CB. So that was kind of cool. But he's teaming with Eli Isom, who's another dude that's really green, been around for a couple of years now, but really want to see him break out because he's got something there. But they were facing the Gates of Agony, who I'd never heard of before, in Khan and Toa Leona. And no, that's not Tony Khan.
I did see that. I got really confused because I had no idea who they were.
So Khan is, I believe it's pronounced Khan, yeah? It's spelled...
Did one of them work for AEW Dark?
Possibly. But they were revealed as the newest members of Tully Blanchard Enterprises, which was kind of cool, I guess. But it was also pretty fucking random, if I'm honest. I have no doubt with a brain like Tully in their ear, especially because they are a tag team, that they could potentially be something. They got a decent pop when they came out, so obviously the Ring of Honor fans in attendance were familiar with them, which is always good. But it was essentially just an enhancement match where the Gates of Agony get the win. That's all I can say about it.
Literally.
So I'm hoping that with Tully in their ear, they can be something, because they had a good look. They seem to be really, really good as a team. They seem to have decent, I have terrible footwork, so I'm going to put that out there when I'm saying that someone has good footwork. I can still recognize, because I recognize that my own is shit. But they had, good footwork, good cohesiveness. Looking forward to seeing them possibly do something more. Match number 4.
They have a lot of potential, in my opinion, anyway.
100%. I'm like, I didn't really know what to think, but for a pre-show match, 100% did its job. 100%.
Yeah.
Match number 4, right before we went over to the main card on the pre-show, we had Joe Hendry versus Dalton Castle. I was really digging these guys as a tag team, and I'm kind of sad that they made them have a falling out so soon, but it is what it is. I hope they can make up in true wrestling fashion, We fight, we make up, we kiss, we break up. I don't fucking know why Katy Perry just jumped into my head, but anyway, both of their entrances, charismatic as fuck. If anyone listening, I know I say this a lot of times, but I have family and friends that they listen just to kind of show support. Get on YouTube and look up Joe Hendry's music videos. I show pretty much all of them to Teak, Mrs. Crossfire, and she lost her fucking mind. Like, she's like, who is this guy and why is he so charismatic? And I'm like, oh, you think that's something? And then I showed her, like, all of his videos on YouTube and just lost it. Especially, like, the Drew McIntyre one that he did in ICW. The I'm Blue, da-ba-dee-da-ba-da, he did one, but it's like, I'm Drew. Fucking...
I'm Drew. Yeah.
Just amazing.
I mean, I literally forgot he was a thing. I forgot he was a thing until now, because he kind of just disappeared when the pandemic hit.
When Ring of Honor went into hiatus, he did a new one trying to get other people to book him. It was Book Joe Hendry. And it was like I can't remember if it was Backstreet Boys or NSYNC, but it was some sort of like boy band one that he did. And it was fucking amazing. Like, if you, like, seriously, when we finish this interview, go look it up on YouTube. You're going to be in fucking stitches. But they refused to adhere to the Code of Honor when the match started. How rude. Nothing really special here in all honesty, but it did its job for a pre-show match. Both guys really got their characters over. Dalton Castle gets the win with a bangarang. Castle apparently a babyface again now that they have broken up. I dig it. I feel his character does work better as a babyface. That's just me. But over on the main card, match 1, we had Shane Swerve Strickland versus the Source Alex Zane. Straight from the get-go, you and I were talking about this before it even happened. Like, the moment they announced this match, we were just like, holy fucking shit. And
yeah, and it's one of the matches that I missed.
Go back and watch it, because I think having it as the opener was a very smart choice, because you've always got to start off strong, and I'm honestly just a massive mark for both men. Sue me. I'm looking forward to the Wrestling Revolver show, actually. Is it
this weekend on Saturday.
This weekend. I need to buy that. Because it is
I've already bought it, so you can get on that.
Whose house? Swerve's house.
Swerve's house.
I do really love the development of Alex Zane's character, though. You can really tell how much both of their respective times, the internet's going to hate me for this, but their time in NXT has really benefited them both. Obviously, Swerve more, since Zane, unfortunately, wasn't actually there overly long, but just they start off super fast-paced, super indie in a lot of aspects, but then at the end of each sequence, they'd stop, and they'd take that time to let it sink in. Something that both of them, more so Zane than Swerve, because Swerve was getting really good, hence why he got signed in the first place, but something that both of them really need to work on was kind of just let it sink in, right? Like, just don't just go, because everyone else is doing it. And obviously, I'm not a fucking expert. I'm just an armchair quarterback, for, lack of a better term, but I just feel like, yeah, both men seem different coming out of their respective time under the WWE banner. But I always get I don't know about you, but I always get really fucking nervous when Alex Zane goes for that running Dragon Arrow when he's got his opponents up on the top rope. Like, every time I feel like he did, the first time he attempted it, Swerve caught him in like a powerbomb position and deadlifted him while he was still on the top rope, and I'm just like, fuck, this dude's gonna land on his head. Like, it's the first match, like, of the main card. Like, just no, but he didn't die. He didn't die. And no matter how many times I see it, it makes me fucking cringe. I did get a little bit meh at a certain spot because it's the first match on the card and you're doing a poison rana off the apron to the floor. It looked cool as hell, but then there's just that wannabe Booker voice in the back of my head like, it's only the first match. But I did love the reasoning behind that spot though, because again, in kayfabe, Swerve's just been released. Obviously, Alex Zane was released, months and months ago before Swerve was. So in Swerve's mind, out of instinct, he's still used to the WWE style of the 10 count. Here in Ring of Honor, of course, it's a 20 count, but Swerve, out of instinct, out of desperation, scrambles because he thinks he's about to be counted out. So I did like the little subtlety in that Neen Riccaboni on commentary.
He was definitely cool on some of the things.
I thought the finish was beautiful though. Swerve was kind of working the knee of Zayn throughout the match, and at the end of the match, he gives a big double stomp to the knee of Zayn, and then while Zayn's hunched over, can't defend himself, he just throws him up. Boom, JML driver, Swerve gets the win clean. Fantastic opener. As I said, I'm kind of iffy on the whole Poison Rana on the floor. Could have done something else to be on the floor, but I understood why they do it. You said you didn't watch this match, but I think you said you saw the highlights from the match, yeah?
Which match was that?
The Swerve match. I think you said you didn't get to watch it.
Okay, yeah.
You saw the...
I've seen like the bits and pieces. I saw a bit of the opening exchange and I saw the Poison Rana, which actually made me cringe a little bit. Because as you said, I thought he was going to die.
It's just, between that and like the Dragon Rana, I'm like, there was 2 points in that match where I'm just like, someone's going to die. I'm like, Swerve almost died on the fucking Poison Rana.
They both nearly did.
Everyone just needs to calm down. Stop the flipper shit. By God, Jim Cornette yells at Cloud. I don't know why I did the Jim Ross by God, but anyway.
Somehow, Jim Cornette's having a stroke somewhere.
Look, this is my podcast. This is Corning Conversation. We get sidetracked all the time. Before we get into the second match, just winding back real quick to WrestleMania, did you see Jim Cornette reacting to Sami Zayn versus Johnny Knoxville?
No, I did not.
He's like, this is the biggest embarrassment I have seen in the history of... I feel like part of him's got to be working. Like, surely he's got to be working. But yeah, he's like, this is the biggest embarrassment I've ever seen. Worst WrestleMania match of all time. Possibly the worst wrestling match of all time. He just went off. And like, again, I honestly do truly think that there is a part of him that is just, he's working in character, but entertaining as hell. It's fucking great. It's probably on YouTube, I think.
I don't like Jim Cornette because that match was, to me, that's what wrestling's all about. Yeah, your entertainment, you get your bit of wrestling. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about. I thought it was funny.
Part of him might be telling the truth because he is very, very old school, and that's fine. Like, everyone has their own preferences. It's like, Chris Jericho tells the story that Pat Patterson used to say that, sometimes Vince likes vanilla, sometimes he likes chocolate, but it's his ice cream shop, flavors of ice cream. But whatever. I wanted to bring that up because I realized I forgot to mention it before when we were talking about WrestleMania. But yeah, match number 2 on this card, we had Ninja Mac versus Brian Cage. Who better than Cage? Nobody. And yes, I just did the arm slash thing, which may or may not be the reason that I do it as John Crossfire. Fucking sue me. This was advertised as a mystery opponent for Mac as part of Tully Blanchard Enterprises. Obviously, Brian Cage would go on to be revealed as the newest member here. Got a pretty good pop from the fans, though, even with Tully's introduction, which, in all honesty, felt a little bit flat. It was just like, your opponent, the Machine Brian Cage. And thank God the fans popped, because otherwise, that would have been really fucking anticlimactic.
Yeah. I like it, but I don't think it's the way that Cage should have been brought into Ring of Honor.
Well, I unfortunately saw the spoiler to this, but I still popped pretty huge because I am a fan of Brian Cage. And as you know, I've gotten photos with him at literally every time I've gone to World Series Wrestling because, again, just a fucking mark. As much as the match goes, it was essentially just a competitive squash, which for a pay-per-view, people might, they might complain, but I feel it was the best way to do it. Of course, Ninja Mac showing all the fighting spirit or whatever cliches you want to throw out. But despite me not being familiar with the Gates of Agony, the visual after the match of them, all standing in the ring where you've got Cage, those two, and then Tully just kind of in the background. Pretty fucking cool visual. I can get behind it. Brian Cage is someone you and I have talked about through Messenger, Snapchat, over the phone, whatever. Pretty much a perfect fit for the Ring of Honor environment. And I'm pretty sure I actually mentioned it on the episode where I covered Tony Khan buying ROH, but I feel like that's the perfect spot for him. But what was your thoughts?
We talked about it. I think we talked about this, the whole Cage, remember when he wasn't being used on TV? Like, he wasn't really on AEW?
We talked about it, through Messenger and over the phone.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure I did gloss over it when I talked about Khan buying Ring of Honor. But what do you think about the debut of Cage here? Do you think having him as Tully Blanchard's client is the right thing to do? Or would you have done it another way? Because you and I did kind of fantasy book Brian Cage debuting in Ring of Honor weeks before this event even happened. I'm interested in seeing how the alliance goes, but you and I we fantasy booked that we were in the main event, you'd have Bandito retain not retain because it's a unify, but have Bandito win the main event and then have Brian Cage come in as a heel and attack him. I feel like even with Tully Blanchard as his manager, that still I feel like would have been the way to go, because Bandito, Gresham, he's been around. Bandito's done a couple of title defenses, but Gresham's been all around the indies, defending his half of the title. So I feel like giving Bandito that moment that he was robbed of kind of at Final Battle due to COVID, and then giving him a feud with Brian Cage as the first set of feud. And let's face it, the two of them, Brian Cage, I feel like that's why he needs a manager, because he does the whole get my shit in. That's his gimmick, right? So let him do all the flips and tricks, but then have Tully there to get him heat. But fortunately, not to be. But what do you think? Do you think that this pairing with Tully is the right way to go, or would you have just done something completely different?
I honestly would have gone just him solo, to be honest. In AEW, right? He should have been solo from the start there. Yeah, he didn't need Team Taz. He doesn't need that crap.
I don't think he needs a manager per se, but out of the two, I did dig him with Taz. I did really. I did
as well. I like him with Taz, but I don't think he needs that. And especially in Ring of Honor, he should be that top guy.
I don't think he needs Tully either, but I feel like Cage, look, he's, not a megastar, but he has been around. He's literally traveled the world. So even someone like him being in the car with the Gates of Agony and stuff, or on the flights, he can still benefit them as well. And obviously Tully Blanchard has fucking, experience on experience on experience. But yeah, I feel like this is more possibly, in my opinion, to benefit those two guys as a tag team than Brian Cage, which is fine. It's fine. Brian Cage is Brian Cage. He has his fans. He's going to get over no matter what, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
Match number 3. Sorry, continue.
I think it's really hard with Cage, because me and you, we've met him several times. He's a cool dude, and you just want the best for him. You know what I mean? Us as fans, we want him to have a good run, at least get a decent world title run. He had a good one in Impact, but how long ago was that now?
Well, so I don't necessarily need him to be world champion to succeed.
No,
but I can see him, especially in Ring of Honor, just fucking running roughshod through everyone as this monster.
And he's the type of guy we need. Yeah. And guys I honestly feel like Jeff Cobb would be perfect for there again. Bring him back, put him in. There's a few other guys from MLW that I'd really like in Ring of Honor, like Alex Hammerstone. He's awesome.
You know what? Literally, the moment you said MLW, Brian Cage versus Calvin Tankman is a Ring of Honor world title match. That right there on paper, in my opinion, at least.
Yep. Tankman is, you know me. I don't know if I actually brought him to your attention, but I've known about him for a couple of years, and I'm a big fan.
I've kind of seen him here and there, on YouTube and stuff on IWTV, but it wasn't until I started trying to get back into MLW, and I've fallen way behind. I haven't seen a single bit of the Azteca Underground stuff, but I'm keeping up with stuff with clips online. But yeah, it was really when I first started getting back into MLW. I watched pretty much every single episode of Fusion from last year, and just watching his development there, I was kind of I love your boy Hammer, but I was kind of salty that Tankman wasn't the one to dethrone Jacob Fatu, if I'm honest.
I was kind of the same though. Hammer's a great worker, and I'm a big fan of him, but I like Calvin Tankman a lot more.
But match number 3, we'll move on. We've doted over Brian Cage enough. The bottom line is, regardless of how we would have booked it, ponder the question: what if he's still in Ring of Honor? And that's the perfect place in both of our opinions for him.
Exactly.
But match number 3 was a match that I thoroughly fucking enjoyed. Lee Moriarty versus Jay Lethal. Straight off the bat, the storyline going into this is Lethal's currently going through a bit of a rut, I guess you'd say. And in Lethal's own words, Moriarty reminds him of a younger version of himself. And I honestly, for the stage that Moriarty's at in his career, I can see that. I can honestly see that.
Yeah.
Lethal was showing a sense of urgency as soon as the match started, attempting multiple finishes in every little bit opening that he could get. But Lee had all of them counted them, moved out of the way, which was beautifully done. Jay Lethal, kind of showing that he knows that he needs to put this rookie down because he has so much potential. And then Moriarty showing that, hey, I'm not going to go down that easy, and that's why I remind you of you, sort of thing, which just beautifully done. Multiple times throughout the match, the commentary team did a brilliant job of getting this over as well. Basically, Moriarty, he did his homework, and he actually forced the veteran in Jay Lethal to change his game plan multiple times throughout the match as the match progressed. And thankfully, commentary were there, because otherwise, if you were to look at that with no sound, there'd be absolutely no psychology, because 1 minute Lethal's doing this and then he's doing this, and it's like, why would he do that? But Caprice Coleman and Ian Riccaboni, fantastic job of getting that over.
I really hope they keep them in the future as the commentators, because I really enjoy them as the commentators for Ring of Honor.
See, Caprice Coleman, he's been doing a bit of stuff here and there in NWA. I'm kind of sad he's not in the Ring of Honor ring, but Ian Riccaboni is he's up there as one of the best play-by-play guys going. Like, if he keeps going, he could be up there, possibly with the all-time greats. But Caprice Coleman has really fallen into that color commentary role. Absolutely beautiful. And the two of them they just have natural chemistry. And I don't think I've ever heard them call a bad match, to be honest.
Neither, really.
But I popped really hard at the entire finishing sequence for this match. The entire fucking finishing spot, if you will, goes for about a minute. It goes for about a minute. It starts with Lethal goes for the Hail to the King elbow drop. Ooh, yeah. Moriarty counters into a crucifix pin for a very close near fall, and then they're just both firing off rapid pin attempts after pin attempts, and the counts just seem to get closer and closer each time. Moriarty slipped on one of them, and even Teak said, fuck, he's about to fall, but he recovered like instantly and still wrapped him up in a very beautiful cradle. But eventually, behind the referee's back, Jay Lethal hits a low blow, undetected by the referee, and then the lethal injection for the pin. The fans are shocked. They're booing at the result. But then randomly, Lethal snaps, attacks Matt Sydal, who was in Moriarty's corner. Sydal's on crutches, solidifying the heel turn. But then I had to laugh because as Lethal was leaving, they're chanting, "Thank you, Lethal." But in saying that, I think it's because they thought that maybe that was him going over to AEW. Obviously, they seem to be continuing, but I feel like that's what it was. Maybe they thought in their mind that he was leaving at the same time.
That sounds right. I honestly had that vibe too.
Because it was just so weird. They were like, boo, and then as he's leaving, they were like, "Thank you, Lethal." I'm like, make up your fucking mind. But what was your thoughts on, both the match as a whole and the finish? Because I have a really big spiel about this that I've written down. So, and it's a bit of a rant in all honesty, but in a good way. So I'm going to let you have the floor. I'm just going to shut up. I'm going to let you tell your thoughts because, as I said, it's a little bit of a rant. But what was your thoughts on this match and subsequently the Jay Lethal heel turn?
This match is actually when I started to tune in because obviously, life and I had to do other things. And honestly, I haven't seen a lot of Morty, but, to me, he shocked the shit out of me. I thought he was awesome. I've seen plenty of Jay Lethal, as, with you, and, but this dude, he literally is what you said, a younger version of Jay Lethal in my eyes.
100%. Anything you can pick up from him on YouTube, IWTV, anything like that, he's fucking fantastic. Like, fantastic.
And if Seidel's in his corner, he's obviously,
Yeah. But what do you feel about in terms of the Jay Lethal heel turn?
I like it. I thought he was getting a bit stale as a face.
Bingo. Like, I know it's a super marky thing to say, but
but you got to say it.
Like, it seems like just about every wrestler ever, someone's like, "Oh, they suck. They need to turn heel." But no, like in this case, like Lethal, he'd been face for a while. He'd been in the foundation. He signed with AEW, which was a big deal. But in true AEW fashion, it lasted about 2 weeks, and now, like, he's still doing something, but it's kind of just there. But
exactly, like most of them.
That's another story for another day. But
yeah.
I popped pretty fucking hard for this. The moment Lethal hit the low blow, I had all of these gears turning in my mind, and for many reasons. First off, I don't know if this was intentional or just pure coincidence, but straight off the bat, there's a lot of symbolism here with the low blow, because if you remember, someone we were just talking about earlier who returned to the WWE in Cody, when he first left the WWE,
he low blowed and put the finger up. He would go on
to turn heel. He would join the Bullet Club. The man that Cody turned heel on and low blowed was Jay Lethal, who at that time was the face of Ring of Honor. And obviously, the story here is that Jay Lethal was in a rut, something had to change, whatever, but Lethal never would have became successful as the face of Ring of Honor without the initial heel run that kicked off. So it kind of almost like everything's kind of come full circle in a sense.
Yeah.
The second reason this popped me, and it's purely just from an absolute mark standpoint, but that's what we're here for, right? Ranting, reviewing, marking out. That's literally the tagline of the podcast. But I originally discovered Ring of Honor in about 2008, 2009, maybe 2010, and I was only seeing clips on YouTube and stuff, and then eventually, social media. And I'm going to cop heat for this, but my initial thoughts from Ring of Honor, and I actually went on record on social media and said it, I thought Ring of Honor was overrated. And I've obviously well and truly eaten my words over the years, and it's become one of my favorite products. But I was originally seeing all these clips, and I'm seeing guys like Nigel McGuinness, Eddie Edwards, Davey Richards, Kevin Steen, and El Generico, who, Kevin Owens is one of my fucking favorite wrestlers of all time now, especially as Kevin Steen, etc. And all of these clips I was watching, though, I'm seeing all these guys kick out of 3, 4, 5, hell, sometimes 6 finishes like it's a video game. And that's still a problem in wrestling today. But I was watching these completely out of context. So to me, I thought that's all Ring of Honor was. Now, obviously, I've gone back and I've watched quite a lot of that, in its entirety. And it's fucking brilliant. But I remember about 2013, 2014... actually, might have even been earlier that. Might have been 2012. But I really got sucked into Ring of Honor when I saw a guy by the name of Adam Cole, baby, who was on the rise. But what I most think of when I think of Ring of Honor is that one specific run that Jay Lethal had when he defeated Jay Briscoe. He became dual world and television champion as a heel, and then he just kind of slowly morphed into a babyface by proxy due to the constant amazing performances that he was putting out. And then obviously he goes on to form the foundation. And then, as we say, he just kind of did the foundation thing for a bit, was tag champs with Gresham as a face. But then he just kind of floated about. So I'm kind of excited at the prospect of getting that original Jay Lethal back. Now, obviously, I'd seen Jay Lethal many, many years ago as the Black Machismo character. But this, in my opinion, is peak Jay Lethal. And I'm not saying, hey, put the belt on him, make him world champion again. But I'm 100% on make this guy a top guy in the relaunch of Ring of Honor. Something I'd like to say, and this is something I'd like to see, rather, and this is just fantasy booking, but take Sanjay Dutt out of the equation. Obviously, he's going on to be Lethal's manager in AEW, but I think put Lethal and maybe even Gresham, who, spoiler alert, does win in the main event, which we'll get to, but take them and put them in Tully's group, right? You could have Gresham as world champ, Lethal as pure champ, Cage as television champ, Gates of Edging as tag champ, give them all the fucking gold like Evolution, because why not? And have them run roughshod through the entire roster until you have to get a guy like Christopher Daniels, and he has to like assemble a team of young guys to elevate them and eventually take down Tully Enterprises. I don't know. Again, as I said, that's a rant, and I literally got all of this just from one low blow from Jay Lethal.
I dig it, though.
My fucking, you know how my mind works, dude. I was just like, boom, and I thought of the Cody thing, and I'm like, well, this, and this, and I was just like, fuck. Like, bottom line is, Jay Lethal turned heel, and I splooshed a little bit. Do you have anything else to add to that before we move to the next match?
No, we'll just let you enjoy sploosing.
Match number 4. We had the interim Ring of Honor Women's World Championship. We had Willow Nightingale versus Mercedes Martinez. This match came about because the current ROH Women's Champion, Deonna Purrazzo, was unfortunately unavailable due to current obligations that she has with Impact Wrestling. Of course, that is who she is actually signed with, is Impact. So the winner of this match would face Deonna at a later date. So in my opinion, it's essentially just a number 1 contenders match, with the winner then carrying the title, which has never really made sense to me, because unless they do the same thing that Gresham and Bandito just did, where they're both defending their half of the championships, it's not really an official reign, at least in my opinion. So I don't understand, but again, it's wrestling, it's fine. The video package for this match, I thoroughly enjoyed. Something I've put ROH over in the past, and I'm going to continue to do it till the end of time. Their sit-down interviews / promos, and then they kind of mash them both up. They always work really well for people. Like, this is how Teague got into Ring of Honor originally, is even if you don't know these characters, you can watch that 1.5, 2 minute video package and you're instantly invested. It's fucking great.
Yeah.
Pretty standard match, in all honesty. Willow Nightingale does show a lot of great natural babyface fire, though. We had big kickouts of big moves, including an impressive moonsault from Willow Nightingale. Eventually, Mercedes Martinez does go on to get the win with a surfboard dragon sleeper. I do look forward to Deonna versus Mercedes Martinez in the future. They have had a couple matches. They've all been pretty good. The code of honor was adhered to. They hugged, feel good moment, whatever else. The commentary team reminded everyone that Mercedes has beaten Deonna Purrazzo in the past. I think Deonna's also beaten her in the past, but, build up your own talent, I guess. Makes sense. It's wrestling. Match number 5, Tom. James, DJ Maximum, boo. Fucking whatever. The tagline says James Hellfire. The one that you and I have been waiting for, not just since Final Battle, but for fucking years, we've talked about as a dream match. They used to be the Revival. Now it's FTR. Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler challenging the Briscoes, Mark and Jay, for the Ring of Honor Tag Team Championship. Holy
and goddamn
fucking shit. How long, as I said, we've been fantasy booking this for years. How long has the wrestling world been dreaming, been waiting, been salivating at the very thought that this match could even be a possibility? And now it actually happens. And it didn't disappoint.
Every single bit of it delivered.
It did not disappoint.
No way. It was amazing. That's all I can say, really.
Big fight field from the get-go. The fans in attendance were super hot for this. And as I mentioned, same. Got a little bit of an issue going on downstairs. No, not really. But I was splooshing. I was just like, oh my God, my mind was racing. This is actually a thing. The crowd was very much split, which is interesting because obviously, tag team wrestling is something that I'm just a fucking massive mark for, especially when done right. And Ring of Honor has always done a great job of elevating tag team wrestling. So obviously, the fans are going to be, behind FTR here. But given how beloved the Briscoes are, especially under the Ring of Honor, banner, I was a little bit surprised at just how 50-50 it was in the grand
I was too, actually.
But
I was too, yeah. It was crazy.
But FTR is a team that you could literally, if you had a time machine You could put them in any promotion in any era, and they work.
Literally.
Like, it's just,
Yep.
they're fucking hands down. And you and I have talked about this, like, people can shit on them or whatever, but honestly, one of the greatest tag teams of all time. Like, from a psychology standpoint, they can have a match with literally anyone of any style and mash it with theirs. And, they'll have a 5-star classic. 5 stars, 5 stars. Whatever. I don't give a fuck about star ratings, but they have bangers of matches.
It was amazing, bangers. Man. I can't even speak about it. It was that good.
The Code of Honor was strongly not adhered to, but they still did show mutual respect by kind of acknowledging each other with like the nod and all right, this is it. This is us. Let's go. Jay Briscoe got some color very early on. FTR literally spat in the faces of the Briscoes. COVID! We're still not out of a pandemic. What are you doing? We had lots of false finishes as expected, but just fucking wow. Just this is where I love the marking out portion, because I can put on my Booker hat and be like, well, I would have booked this and this. No, everything from start to finish is the sequences, the timing, the drama, the fan reaction, the commentary, even the referee. Just, oh my fucking God. What a match.
It was awesome.
What a match.
It was easily one of the best tag team matches I've ever seen in my life.
Honestly, Dax Harwood got some color as well about midway through. Both teams showed a lot of signs of desperation. I popped really hard when the Briscoes hit FTR with their own move, the big rig. I'll always pop at that. I love doing that on the video games, just stealing my opponent's finishing moves. It's just a little thing that always gets me. I think it's just because I'm a dick. I love it. Like, I remember when AJ Styles was defeated by, I think, was it Doug Williams? I think both Doug Williams and Christopher Daniels have done it, where they beat Styles with his own move, and I was just like, such good shit. And then, Jericho did it with the rock bottom and stuff. It's just great stuff. I love it. But the suplex off the apron to the floor, fantastic spot, especially at that point in the match. Like, they were basically all just running on fumes at that point. But then it kind of momentarily made me get mad at the spot in the first match again, because I was like, it meant so much here at the way that they all put it together and whatever else with the pacing. But I'm like, had that spot in the very first match not have happened, it still would have meant just that much more. And that's where I put my Booker hat on. That's where I put my Booker hat on. I'm just like, just that little tiny bit. But it still fucking worked. We had multiple fight forever chants throughout this match. And honestly, as we've said, rightfully so. Like, this isn't even really a recap, because like I didn't really take many notes, but I'm just like, fuck. Like, FTR hits the big rig and they go on to become the new Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champions. And I absolutely love that they are using the old school Ring of Honor tag team belts as well. And now this is where the Code of Honor is adhered to after they've now, beaten the crap out of each other. They've earned each other's respect. Huge Ring of Honor chants ring out through the building. FTR leave the ring and kind of, let the Briscoes have their moment. Thank you, Briscoes chants break out. And then I literally fucking almost burst something because the Young Bucks attacked the Briscoes. I was kind of meh at them using this to hype up an episode of Dynamite, but the history that the Bucks have in ROH themselves still make me pop. But then I kind of then loved that they were using it to hype up Dynamite at the same time, because the Bucks fake out FTR's challenge and they use, all the AEW stuff to get cheap heat, which worked fucking brilliantly. I also love FTR's gear that they were wearing as well. Just as a side note, they had the FTR in the style of the old school Ring of Honor logo. Just that little stuff.
Little thing.
You and I were talking about this. Do you think this will lead to a tag team triple threat match of some kind in either AEW or preferably ROH between FTR, the Bucks, and the Briscoes? Because I said this to you last night and you lost your shit. And I'm like, could you imagine if this leads up to them having the return of the ladder war with these three teams involved?
Oh, man. I really hope so, but with, no one knows really what's going to happen with Ring of Honor now. Like, is it going to go to a network? Because if it does, then the Briscoes are totally screwed and they probably won't be able to,
Yeah, well, unfortunately, one of them made some sort of comments. I didn't agree with the comments, but they're not as bad as other people have said or done, and they're still booked elsewhere. So whatever, We're not going to touch on that. We're not going to name names. There's lots of shitty people in professional wrestling. Go figure. But
yeah,
you and I were talking about this. I believe it was before we actually started recording. But I see the Briscoes going to NWA, but I would love to see them stay in Ring of Honor. Because obviously the AEW, sponsors and television company and stuff that own them, Turner Broadcasting, have said that, allegedly, I should say, have said, according to the dirt sheets, that they don't want the Briscoes. But I feel like Tony Khan buying Ring of Honor, he's a massive wrestling fan, regardless of whether you agree with his booking strategy or not. He, just like us, is a mark. So I feel like he's going to make a massive play to keep them in Ring of Honor in some form or fashion. I just don't like that. I said I didn't want them to bleed over. Spoiler alert from today, and it's not really going to be a spoiler because by the time you hear this, it's going to be Sunday. On today's episode of Dynamite, Samoa Joe, who debuted at the end of the show. Spoiler alert. But whatever. He defeated Minoru Suzuki for the Ring of Honor Television Championship. That's all well and good. But I don't want them to make a habit of that. I don't want them to bleed over. Like, it's all well and good to have talent going backwards and forwards, but just keep the brands separate. Like, is that too much to ask for?
I agree with that though. I don't think, like, even with Wheeler Yuta as the pure champion, I hate seeing the Ring of Honor belts on AEW every week. It's not, like, it's cool. It's cool to see, but every single week and like
I don't mind
for the Ring of Honor
being there as the champion and having a one-off Ring of Honor title match here and there, but at Battle of the Belts 2, they just announced literally just before we started recording that we're going to have Ring of Honor World Champion Jonathan Gresham versus Dalton Castle. I'm sure it's going to be a fantastic match, but wouldn't you have had that as the first Ring of Honor title match to be on TV? Or at least just done one or the other? Or maybe had the television title match happen there. Maybe, I don't know, I think... So I'm going to do a little bit of editing here because James Hellfire's smoke alarm just went off. I guess the heat from the Hellfire was too much to handle. Beautiful. I can't reach my soundboard at the moment. I would have pressed the button otherwise. But I don't know how much until I go back and listen to this. So if you're hearing this again, I don't know whether or not it's because Minoru Suzuki is about to go back to Japan or not. But why not, have the Battle of the Belts, have both the television and ROH Championship? It just felt so left field to, don't get me wrong, Minoru Suzuki versus Samoa Joe, it's a great, prospect of the two of them just smacking the shit out of each other. And from the clips I've seen so far, that's exactly what they did. But I feel like it, I know it might not make sense to some people, but I feel like it devalues it in a sense. Like, it's good to have it on the network and have the championship there because, AEW obviously has more eyes than Ring of Honor has. So that's good to boost it up. But at the same time, if you're on Ring of Honor, people already know about AEW for the most part if they're watching Ring of Honor. And then it's like, tune into AEW this week. It's just like, it makes Ring of Honor seem like nothing. Like, I understand they were in effect going to do it. Basically, it was going to be AEW's NXT to an extent, right? But so far from what we've seen, like, the action's been great, but then I guess, to put on our smart cap, the booking of it just seems really weird. Like, I'm not a businessman per se. I don't have any fucking, qualifications or papers, but I just, from a business aspect to the little bits that I do understand, it seems odd to me. But I guess if you've got millions upon millions upon millions of dollars, well, actually they've got billions upon billions of dollars. I guess you can do whatever the fuck you want. So I just hope it doesn't flop, I guess. And because the smoke alarm went off and I've got to edit that out, I can't remember what triggered that. But yeah, I just whatever.
Things are happening, man.
Match number 6. Minoru Suzuki challenging Rhett Titus for the championship, Ring of Honor World Championship. Gee, I wonder who won that after that rant. But the Murder Grandpa versus the most devastating dropkick in the business. In true Suzuki fashion, it starts with a couple of quick slaps exchanged before going to the mat. Titus was presented as the underdog here despite being the defending champion, but I mean, Suzuki can outstrike and outgrapple just about anyone, so it's not really a bad thing that he was the underdog here. Some nice back and forth, but a relatively short match, and Suzuki becomes the new Ring of Honor World Television Champion after a trademark cradle piledriver. Turns out it was his first ever championship in the United States, which is crazy to think about after the career that he has had. We were talking about this before we went on air, though. I do feel bad for Rhett Titus in a way because after 16 years, his first ever singles title in Ring of Honor, and he's essentially just a transitional champion. And I guess it does make sense to a point. I mean, they went on hiatus. They didn't know what the future held, so they kind of gave him that, feel-good moment back at Final Battle. But yeah, look, I'm happy for Minoru Suzuki, and he was a transitional champion anyway, and he dropped it to Samoa Joe, but it is what it is. It was a pretty decent match for what it was.
I think it was too. It was pretty good, but, Titus, I think, could have had a lot more of a bit of a showing, but, it is what it is. We can't do anything without it.
Yeah. Man, at the end of the day, this is why I don't get wrestling fans. Yeah, we can say, hey, I want this guy to win, and I can be upset, but when you turn around and I'm not going to be like, Tony Khan's a dumb fuck because he took the title off him. No, it's his company, right? He can book it as he wants. It's his television show. He's the one that's in charge.
Exactly. He's the one that gets the money.
He's the one with his real-life action figures, right? They're going to do this, and then this guy's going to win. But, yeah, as I said, short match. I enjoyed it for what it was, though. Match number 7. We had the Ring of Honor Pure Championship. Wheeler Yuta the challenger. Wow, I wonder who wins this match. Spoiler alert. Whatever. It's been 2 weeks by the time this goes out since the event happened. So if you haven't seen spoilers, then fucking good on you, because I watched about half of this show and then just saw all the spoilers. But Wheeler Yuta challenging Josh Woods for the championship. Now, James Hellfire, I'm going to out you, because while you appreciate technical wrestling, as most wrestling fans do, you're not the biggest fan of the pure rules. But again, that's fine. Everyone has different tastes. Again, flavors.
I will say, though, I did enjoy this match. I really did enjoy this match.
Oh, okay. Well,
it won me over. They won me over.
That's good, because I was going to make a joke about everyone has different tastes, even if they're wrong, because pineapple does go on pizza. Shout out to Nick Maltino.
It does go on pizza, by the way.
But I am a huge mark, as well documented on this show, for the pure rules. I've discussed the rules many times, so I'm not going to sit here and fucking run through them for the millionth time. I might do it at a later date, depending on the match, but just don't feel like doing it right now. It's my show. It's a free show. Deal with it. The judges for this one were BJ Whitmer. Fuck, I miss him. I miss him so much.
I popped for him, I'm not going to lie.
This is, especially, as I said, around the time that I started Ring of Honor was sometime between 2012 and 2014, and this is around the time where Colby Carino was BJ Whitmer's young boy, and literally all Whitmer had to do was pick up a microphone, and there was chance of shut the fuck up for 5 minutes before it even said a word. It was beautiful.
He was gold.
But we had BJ Whitmer, Christopher Daniels, and boom, boom, Colt Cabana making his second appearance of the night as the judges. As most Pure Rules matches, it started very nice and slow-paced grappling, both guys kind of going tit for tat, feeling each other out. Side note, yesterday upon recording this, I was tagged in a meme by Atticus Slane saying that Wheeler Yuta looks like Superhuman. And now I can't fucking unsee it.
I can't unsee it either.
This is, for the jugglers and juggalettes, back to the match. Not fuck this shit, because I did enjoy it. I was slightly bummed, though. I will say fuck this shit to this, actually. I was slightly bummed that from an aesthetic standpoint, they didn't have the clock and the rope break counter on the screen. I know it's just a little thing, but I always appreciate just the little aesthetic stuff. But Wheeler Yuta uses 2 of his rope breaks before Woods has even used 1. I cringed really hard. Woods gave Yuta a snap suplex into the turnbuckle, almost dropped him, narrowly avoided a brainbuster for real. Jesus fucking God. And it was the same corner, actually, that fucking Zayn almost slipped on the Dragon Rana in the first match. So I'm just like, Jesus Christ. Everyone just stay out of that corner. Because
it's cursed.
Too close to
Danhausen's around.
But Wheeler would use his third and final rope break, and it looks like he's in peril, but gets a sneaky pin, wraps Woods up like a pretzel, and becomes the new Ring of Honor Pure Champion. Not the best Pure Rules match that I have seen, but I enjoyed it, and it obviously had something there for James Hellfire to enjoy it, because as I said, his opinions are trash and he doesn't like Pure Rules. Someone's like, why is his opinion, if his opinions are trash, why is he on the podcast? It's just jokes. Just jokes.
Just jokes, brother.
But match number 8, and we were talking off air, and you and I had differing opinions about this one, and I'm interested to get into this, but match number 8 / the main event for the undisputed Ring of Honor World Championship, we had the Octopus, Jonathan Gresham, the champion, versus Bandito, also the champion, with Chavo Guerrero Jr., who's now apparently Bandito's full-time manager. Don't know why, makes no sense, but I am here for it. It's basically like they've almost said, and this is me imagining what they've done, by the way, so no one fucking try and cancel me for this, but it's almost like they're basically like, let's take the two Mexicans and put them together. There may have been more than that behind the scenes. Maybe this is Tony Khan trying to make up for the shitty way that Chavo was fired from AEW. Maybe that was all a work to lead to this, where Chavo defects to Ring of Honor. I don't fucking know. Who knows? But it's a thing. We have, once again, credit to the Ring of Honor video packages, because this was absolutely brilliant. Jonathan Gresham did a beautiful job of putting over Bandito as an opponent. And I said this to you already in a Snapchat, but I dug the heck out of what Bandito was wearing in his entrance with a little top hat and the cape. It's kind of cool. I dug it. Interesting dynamic, though, between Bandito and Chavo Guerrero, because on the pre-show, Bandito's telling him, please, no cheating. And then at the start of the match, Chavo's telling Bandito not to shake Jonathan Gresham's hand. Like, he's literally in his face, like pointing at him, yelling at him, do not adhere to the code of honor, blah, blah, blah. But then literally, the moment Chavo gets out of the ring, the bell rings and Bandito walks over and with a little bit of sass, shakes Jonathan Gresham's hand anyway, which made me pop at the way that Bandito, like, for a dude that wears a mask, his selling and body language is just fucking amazing. Like, just the sass, the way that he shook Gresham's hand, like, I do what I want. Made me pop.
Yeah.
The fans were split pretty much 50-50 in this one. It's interesting to me, though, that this was just regular rules. I was expecting it to be pure rules, but again, having two back-to-back pure rules matches from a booking standpoint wouldn't have been smart, at least in my opinion. But Gresham has been defending it all across the indies and even on Impact Wrestling a couple of times, and they've all been in pure rules matches. So it was just kind of shocking to me that didn't happen, but I enjoyed it. Maybe they, as I said, maybe they didn't want to, oversaturate it. Because originally, I think the reason Gresham was doing it was the pure title originally, before Tony Khan bought Ring of Honor from Sinclair Broadcasting, they were going to make most of the titles defunct. They were going to have the tag, the world's, and the women's, and I believe they were tossing out the idea of the television, but they were going to get rid of the world six-man, which seems to still be defunct as of now. But all the others have thankfully been reinstated, because, as I said, I'm a mark for pure rules. But that was a rant. But yeah, I was just a little bit confused as to why Gresham's been making this big thing about, being a pure rules wrestler, but then this was just a regular rules match. But nonetheless, still a lot of technical stuff on display from Gresham, as is to be expected. Lots of quick grapples into quick pin attempts and submission attempts. Bandito held Gresham up for a delayed vertical suplex for a full fucking minute. I was losing my mind as the fans were counting along. They counted to 10 6 times, which was kind of funny. Can't count to 60. But excellent display of power from Bandito. But kudos to Jonathan Gresham for posting for that long, though, because being upside down for 5 seconds, I'm like, my head hurts. So he was upside down for a full minute. And like when he got to his feet and he was dizzy, I'm watching it and I'm like, I don't know if he's actually selling or if he's genuinely like dizzy as fuck right now, because his blood was genuinely rushing to his head for a solid fucking minute.
Yeah, it's not something I'd do, I don't think.
That can't be good for the brain, surely.
No.
But Caprice Coleman had me in absolute stitches with his commentary throughout this match, and he wasn't even doing it intentionally. He was just genuinely reacting to Chavo Guerrero's antics, but just had me losing my mind. When Chavo pushes Bandito out of the way from a drive from Gresham. Chavo Guerrero pushes Bandito out of the way from a drive from Gresham. I'm not even going to edit that out. And Caprice Coleman's like, oh my God, what the hell is wrong with you? Why did he just do that? He just basically kind of, has that high-pitched, squeaky voice. And I'm just losing my shit, trying not to wake up fucking Teak, because at that point, it was like 1 a.m. when I'm watching it. And I'm just like, shit. But then had some great near falls in this match as well when they're exchanging pins, much like the Lee Moriarty lethal match early on. Chavo Guerrero, the big crescendo here. Chavo Guerrero hits Gresham with Bandito's version of the Ring of Honor World Championship behind the referee's back, and for probably the first time ever in wrestling history, definitely the first time I've ever seen it, a wrestler tells on his own manager and has him rejected. Like, again,
I could not believe
trying
that.
so hard not to wake Teak up from laughing so hard, because I don't think it was meant to be comedic, but just the way it was executed was just so fucking well done that I was just like, holy shit, this is amazing. Thank you, sir. May I have another? The way they pace this match, though, and this is something similar to the FTR Briscoes match. Now, while it was a very completely different style of match, the pacing very much was just perfectly done. They really turned it up towards the end, like just when you think, hey, they're going to go for another haul, all of a sudden, fucking they kicked it into high gear, and that's when they went the bang, 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 had the finisher kickouts, which, as I've mentioned many times, I'm kind of on, but I was really sucked in as a fan. This is one match that I actually, thankfully, avoided spoilers for when watching. So when Gresham kicks out of the 21-plex, I was like, holy fucking shit, because it was so close. And that's a perfect example of why so many young people need to stop doing kickouts just for the sake of a big spot, because it was executed to perfection, because it meant something. It's Supercard of Honor. That's, it's not their version of WrestleMania like a Final Battle or something is, right? But it's still a big show feel. Again, bit of a rant, but it sucked me in. And it's not very often that and you're in the same boat as well. Like, regardless of, we're on like the most tiny, minuscule fucking part of the business ever. Like, no one knows who we are compared to any of these guys. But once you've had your foot in the door, even just a fraction, you never kind of watch professional wrestling the same.
No.
And towards the end of this match, though, and much like the Lethal match and the FTR match as well, like, this is one of those rare shows that I was trying to take notes and review the match, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, this is cool. Holy fuck, he just kicked out of the 21-plex, and I'm trying not to wake up my wife. Like,
that's kind of what happened with the FTR and Briscoes with me. Like, sitting there trying to take notes and everything that was happening, I was like, holy shit, that is awesome. Oh, fuck, I forgot to take notes.
But yeah, eventually, Gresham wraps Bandito up in a double chicken wing and becomes the undisputed Ring of Honor World Champion. As Gresham is trying to celebrate, he is interrupted, though, by the newly healed Jonathan Gresham was interrupted by Jonathan Gresham. As Jonathan Gresham is trying to celebrate, he is interrupted by the newly healed Jay Lethal, and I guess Lethal is here to stay in Ring of Honor, and the fans, once they realized he was still here to stay, started chanting, "Asshole," but he challenged Jonathan Gresham to a match for the title. Jay Lethal and Sanjay Dutt beat down Gresham. Moriarty tried to make the save, but the numbers game was too much. Lethal held up the Ring of Honor World Championship as the fans continued to chant "arsehole," and then the roof blows off the whole fucking joint when Samoa Joe comes out to confront Jay Lethal. That is something that I did see. I saw that Samoa Joe came out at the end of the show. I didn't see who or what that he did, so I was glad that I got to watch the match kind of without the spoilers, and then got to see the whole Samoa Joe thing, and just fucking awesome. Having him return to Ring of Honor, although he has signed to AEW, but I guess, with Tony Khan owning both brands, I guess kind of by proxy, anyone that signs to either is technically signed with both, kind of like how Dolph Ziggler and now Natalya, as of this week, are over in NXT. But Samoa Joe chokes out Sanjay Dutt and then shakes Jonathan Gresham's hand to end the show as the fans chant Joe's name. A lot to unpack in the main event. But what was your overall thoughts? In my opinion, I thought it was one of the best main events that Ring of Honor have had in a while, but that does include what happened afterwards, and although it may have been overbooked to an extent, it kind of all fell into place in my opinion. But what was your thoughts? You said you weren't big on main event, but you also said that it's because FTR and the Briscoes was just amazing, and that probably should have been the
That's
main event.
why I think I'm going to have to go back and watch it again, I feel, because after that match, I was just out of energy. I was like, oh my God, that was amazing.
I feel like,
and then.
Sorry, continue.
I thought the title match, like the Ring of Honor title match, I'm not the biggest fan of Gresham, as everyone knows. But Bandito I'm a fan of, and I thought, oh yeah, I'll give this a watch. And when I watched it, I really enjoyed the dynamic between him and Chavo. That was hilarious. I was dying the whole time like you were. And then Samoa Joe came out, and I was screaming for a bit. So it was kind of cool. Now, all we need is CM Punk to rock up in Ring of Honor, and we'll be all good.
100%. Imagine like somehow Tony Khan manages to buy the rights to the Final Countdown, and Bryan Danielson, a guy who, just much like Gresham for you, I understand, and you as well. Like you've said, Gresham's a great wrestler. I think Bryan Danielson's a great wrestler, but I've never been the biggest fan. But having that song blast through the Ring of Honor arena one more time, dude, like fucking
even
pop,
if it's just for an appearance, it'd be crazy.
Absolute pop. But even his AEW theme would still get a pop. But just fantasy booking 101. But I feel like I do agree with you from a match standpoint. We agreed before we started recording that I feel like FTR versus the Briscoes should have been the main event, but then they basically, because they did the whole hyping up Dynamite, I'm glad it wasn't, because it's like, oh, that's the main event, tune into Dynamite. It's like, no, as I said, like, just please, I know it's hard, but keep it separate as much as you can. Like, even Samoa Joe, the show ending with him coming out, like, it's a big thing that he came out, and a great note, but it was kind of like, oh, fuck the champion, here's Samoa Joe.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I feel like both of them were kind of, it had good and bad, right? But all in all, fantastic Ring of Honor show. As I said, in my opinion, the main event, quality-wise, one of the better main events that they have had in a while. One of the best Ring of Honor shows we've had in a while, I guess by default because they've been a hiatus. But even before that, like one of the best shows since the pandemic, I should say. Maybe the best show since the pandemic when you factor in that FTR match, the Lethal match, and even, the main event here. I feel it was up there.
I thought it was awesome, man. I really did. I had so much expectation on the return of Ring of Honor and Supercard, and then on the day before, I sort of, it sort of died down when Tony announced that he wasn't going to do like separate sort of thing with Ring of Honor and AEW. He's sort of going to send AEW guys over all the time and do this whole like trade thing, like a draft system thing, and I was just like, nah. It's taken all side.
But when you're constantly on Ring of Honor saying, watch AEW, and when you're on AEW saying, here's Ring of Honor, like, it's at least as I said before with Wheeler Yuta, at least having Ring of Honor on AEW makes sense because you're trying to get more eyes on that. But anyone watching Ring of Honor, for the most part, their eyes are already on AEW, so it's just like, yeah. Like, I understand both brands, for lack of a better term, have to benefit, but I'm a bit iffy on that. But as far as the product, Ring of Honor being back, I'm one fucking happy mark. Very happy mark.
I am too. I really missed Ring of Honor completely. But pre-pandemic Ring of Honor, I'll say. Yes. We'll say that.
And although I made that joke before about, fuck Dave Meltzer and his rating system. Not fuck him as a person, but fuck his rating system. Because, everyone has their own opinions. Like, there's been matches that Dave Meltzer have rated, 3 stars that I think, in my mind, are 5 stars, and vice versa. He's like, this match is 7 stars. And I'm like, it was okay, but,
Every Young Bucks match ever
But, like, overall, and just because I'm doing it with someone else and I've got you on, what would you rate this show out of 10? Not star system, but like for you personally, where does it lie?
A solid 8.
Okay, see that's good.
Solid 8, 8.5.
I wrote down 7 out of 10, and in brackets I wrote maybe 7.5.
So we're about the same.
Leverage. We'll say it was 8. 8 out of 10. There we go.
8 out of 10. We'll meet us halfway.
Why the fuck not? But yeah, absolutely. I think we're in agreement. FTR Briscoes stole the show. I'm gonna hold out hope that we get the fantasy booking of the Ladder War because just fuck yeah. But really quick though, like, do you think that this is the standard that we're gonna see going forward from Ring of Honor shows when we have them, or because I'm a little bit torn, as we've said, like we're crack records here, but I'm just torn with the whole like intermingling thing. I don't know what to expect. But as we said, 8 out of 10 for the show overall.
I don't know what it means for, if we're going to get that sort of standard each show, if we're judging by AEW, they always put on decent pay-per-views, right?
But then you go to your weekly. It's very WWE.
It's very boring.
Like WWE's weekly television at the moment is crapping all over the AEW's. And, the internet doesn't like when you say that. And again, it's all personal preference. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. It all depends. But for both of us, we're very similar-minded. We're more interested in the results on WWE TV than AEW at the moment.
Yeah. I'm more invested, and I'm not saying I'm a WWE mark because I'm a wrestling sports entertainment mark. So I know people are going to get the shits at me for saying sports entertainment. You can't say that. I don't care. It's what it is.
It's the same fucking thing.
It's the same fucking thing. Okay? It makes me laugh so much with Jericho's current gimmick, how he says that he is the best sports entertainer, and all the fans are just going,
that's exactly why Jericho's doing it, because he's a fucking genius.
Exactly, and they're all idiots.
It's like Tommaso Ciampa did the same thing, because everyone in NXT wanted Johnny Wrestling, so he was Tommaso Sports Entertainment. And everyone's like, nah, because it was NXT, not the main roster, and that's back when it was black and gold. And yeah, it was more wrestling focused than all the promos and the characters, but still the same thing at the end of the day. And that's
exactly.
Yeah. But did you have anything else to add, be it WrestleMania or Ring of Honor, before we start to wind down and stuff?
I actually have one that's not.
I've got a bone to pick, but I want to get past all the other wrestling first.
Yes. So we'll bring into my highlight of the weekend, and technically it's not a wrestling event. So my highlight of WrestleMania weekend, you know me, everyone who's listened to me on the podcast before knows that Undertaker's my hero, right? That whole Hall of Fame speech, I was crying the whole way through. And if people actually listen to that Hall of Fame speech, he is true in every sense of the word of what he said. He actually taught you some life lessons, gave you some real shit to live by. And that's why I think it's the greatest Hall of Fame speech ever, because he spoke from the heart, he spoke some real shit, and then he went on and thanked everybody. How much better can that get?
I've actually watched that 3 times, because I watched it the night it happened, because obviously I was at the ICW Central West pop-up show, so I didn't have to get to watch it until later that night. So I watched it while Teek was sleeping, and she's like, hey, is it worth checking out? I'm like, look, you can watch the whole thing, but definitely just check out Taker's. So she watched just Taker's speech while I was cooking dinner, so by proxy I was kind of listening to it. And then that night I went back and I put my headphones in and I watched it again, because why the fuck not? But honestly, the greatest Hall of Fame speech, I'm not going to say any Hall of Fame ever, because I haven't been privy to them, but from all the ones I've seen, whether it be Impact Wrestling or WWE, that reminds me, speaking of Ring of Honor, I need to catch up on the special episodes that they've done on the first ever class of Ring of Honor Hall of Fame, because there's some fucking great names in there, people we've marked out forward, CM Punk, whatever. I think was Joe in there as well? I can't remember. I know the Briscoes and Punk were in there.
Are you going to tell all your fans on the podcast how I predicted the whole Ring of Honor Hall of Fame class?
You did. And I wasn't mad, but I was kind of like, for a first ever Hall of Fame, I was trying to just not blow the wad. But I guess at that point, maybe they weren't. I guess, because at that point, I don't think Tony Khan had bought the company, had he? So it was kind of like, I don't think so.
I don't think it had been announced. He could have.
They said that they were going to return, but maybe they were worried that they wouldn't. Like, maybe they were worried that this was their last show, so they were like, here's this Hall of Fame. But yeah, we'll move on.
Yeah.
Because I've got a bone to pick, an axe to grind. I have a gripe. I have an issue. And I know that James Hellfire agrees with me. Now, people are going to get mad. That's fine. That's why we are in the wrestling business. That's why there is a wrestling ring that my friend, my best friend, my brother James Hellfire can be in, and why at this point I may not be able to manage him for the rest of 2022, provided my surgery isn't postponed again. I might show up. Who knows? It's life. Everything's, wrestling's card subject to change. Life is card subject to change. But I was contacted in my business email, caughtinthebookings@gmail.com, by ICW Australia management. They slid in Crossfire's DMs. I don't know if Mrs. Crossfire will appreciate that. But they wanted to book the nightmare of Australian professional wrestling, Hell Soldier James Hellfire for Day of Darkness 2022. But yet, they neglected to tell me who his opponent or opponents would be. Now, on this same show, James, we have a tournament to crown a brand new ICW Australian champion now that Rob Messenger has tucked his tail between his leg and he quote-unquote retired, boo-hoo, so sad, whatever. Crowd goes mild. So we're going to assume, we're going to make an ass out of you and me, that the reason for this booking is that you, James, will be in that tournament. And I know that you want to be in that tournament, and if you're not going to be in that tournament, there is going to be hell fire to pay.
Well, Crossfire, let me just say this. A year and a half ago, my friend, I felt unwanted. Like I wasn't even needed. So I stayed in another company and won championship gold. April 30th, I expect to be in that Australian Championship tournament. And if I'm not, then ICW, this truly will be your day of darkness. I'm not 150 years old like 90% of that roster. I am the biggest and baddest thing you've ever had walk through that door. And come April 30th, you will all be blessed by the best.
And you can forget all the rest.
Exactly right.
But let's just, again, like this is nothing personal. It's business. My boy wants championship gold, and I want to be a manager of champions. All right? Champions. Maybe we'll add some more people down the line. Who knows? Stay tuned. But let's take it just a quick look at the roster, right? Like this is nothing personal. It's all in the ring, bell to bell. I know how good my best friend is. I have seen him train his ass off. You have seen the weight loss that my boy has had. But let's just take a look at the roster, James. Let's just take a little sneak peek at some of the people also on the roster that may or may not show up in this tournament, shall we?
Yep, let's do it.
So we've got Dozer, Warpath, Barricade, whatever he wants to be called this week. You know, the guy that up and left STA because he wanted to do his own thing, mainly because he couldn't handle the fact that the essential John L. Crossfire had all the limelight. What about Bodie Terrence Kennedy, a young up-and-comer? He's training hard. He claims to be the future. He's not even ring ready yet. I've never heard of him. I'll tell you this, kid. James Hellfire will end your career before it even begins if you cross him. You'd have more of a chance, James. You'd have less of a chance, James, of winning the fight if you were to fight Dennis the sound guy. Like, come on now. Get some experience, kid, before you start calling yourself the future. What about Gimpy? I would love to see James Hellfire finally be the one to slap some sense into that moron. Maybe Mr. Ice Cool will crawl out of his cave. Now, people may not realize this, James, but I have spent some one-on-one time with Mr. Ice Cool behind the scenes, and he's a bit of a dick. Now, the ICW shows themselves, they're PG, they're family-friendly. This is my podcast. I'm going to say whatever the fuck I want. I would love to see James Hellfire take that pimp cane, stick it so far where the sun doesn't shine that it comes out the other end. And then you've got Morte Por Fuego. He appeared on one Mars Wrestlers League show. He hasn't been seen since. He claims to be the long-lost favorite son of Hades. James Hellfire would make Hades his bitch.
Absolutely.
Maybe, how about we move on to people that are friends of the show, former caught in conversation alumni. I just botched my own show title. Who gives a fuck? Let's go. High Octane. I have a lot of respect for you, good sir. You've done a lot for me and my career. You've done a lot for James Hellfire and his career. But you're about one concussion away from being a vegetable. If he tangles with you, James Hellfire, the only thing that he's going to be blessed with is free rent and free food when he's in a hospital bed. Atticus Slane, just like you, James, he just made a comeback on the same show that you did, Western Warfare 5. If he tangles with you, this could be the most short-lived comeback of his life, of anyone's life. And what about Benny the Back Rower? He's been teasing all over social media that he is going to be at ICW Day of Darkness. Maybe he'll make some sort of appearance. James Hellfire is going to hit him so hard that he'll think he plays netball. But I'm getting a little bit hot. I'm not going to lie. All I know is that Day of Darkness, April 30th, Belconnen Community Centre, there's your plug. There's a tournament. My boy's on the same show. He better be in that tournament. Because the way I see it is, myself and James Hellfire, we're actually going to be reunited in person in a week from now. So from a week out from the show, we're going to be giving our extended thoughts, and we'll try and do it in a calm manner. We'll do it in a PG manner to suit your needs, whatever fucking contractual obligations you want me to sign, whatever, I don't care. So we better have an answer by then. Because there's still a lot more people on the roster, and James Hellfire, he's better than pretty much all of them. And the only thing that, if he's not in the tournament, that his opponent's going to be blessed by, much like High Octane, I said if that happens, would be free rent when they're in a fucking hospital bed.
Hallelujah.
And amen. Just take a little deep breath here. I'm not going to lie, James. I feel a little bit disrespected, both for me and on your behalf. You inquire about the services of someone in my emails, my professional business email. You had someone, I think his name was Steve or something. I can't remember. Steve, someone. I think, yeah, it says Steve. His name is literally Steve Smith. That sounds like a fake name to me, ICW Australia. You had Steve Smith send me an email saying you want to inquire the services of James Hellfire, and you don't say what those services entail. Shame on you. But we're on the podcast, James. We're having a good time.
We are.
We talked about WrestleMania. We talked about Ring of Honor. I feel like, we've been going for almost 2 hours now. Obviously, by the time I trim out some of the sound from your smoke alarm going off like 3 times throughout this conversation, we'll wind it down. For those of you that are listening, I am currently wearing a James Hellfire t-shirt. Follow both myself and James Hellfire on social media. Hit up our merch stores. It's all going to be linked below at Hellfire 2018 on Instagram, at The Fire 18 for both of our pages on Facebook. Everything else is there. It's just in the link tree. Go check it out. I'm hoping you can read, because I sure as hell can't, because I'm blind as fuck. It's really hard putting this stuff together. But the song of the week this week was Screaming in Silence by Citizen Soldier. The match of the week was Jimmy Jacobs and Tyler Black versus the Briscoes at Supercard of Honor 3. You've been caught in the crossfire, trapped in the hellfire, trapped in the fire. Most importantly, you've been blessed by the best. And you can forget all the rest. ICW Australia, we want an answer. You've all just been caught in conversation.